Hey guys, Sarah from ExtremeTerrain.com, and today we have a review and install of the Barricade 9,500 pound winch. This winch features universal fitment, meaning it will mount up to most winch capable bumpers with a mounting footprint of 10 inches by 4.5 inches. This winch has a 9,500 pound single line pulling capacity and features a 5.5 horsepower 12 volt series wound motor. This winch comes with 94 feet of steel cable with a replaceable hook. It also includes a controller with a 12-foot lead, as well as this roller fairlead that mounts to the front of your bumper. Coming in at around $370, this winch is on the lower end price-wise when compared to other winches of the same rating. This is mostly due to the steel line. Now, some great parts about steel is that it is abrasion resistant and it is less maintenance than synthetic line. However, the one downside to steel is that if it does break, it has a tendency to fly through the air, causing damage or injury, where synthetic would just fall to the ground. If you're worried about this, you can definitely add a winch line dampener, which would cut down on this. However, if you are an avid off-roader, you use your winch a lot, you might want to consider spending the extra money on a synthetic line. Some of the downsides of synthetic line, in addition to being more expensive, is that it's not quite as abrasion resistant and will require more maintenance than the steel line. So for the occasional off-roader, the steel line will be more weather resistant and it's going to save you some money. I'm giving this install a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It can be done in approximately an hour, so let's jump right into our install. For this install, we used a 16mm wrench, Phillips head screwdriver, needle nose pliers, cutters, 10, 14, 16, and 17mm sockets, 3 and 6 inch extensions, 3/8 drive ratchet, and an impact gun. So before we can mount our winch to our bumper, we do need to prep the winch here a little bit. We're going to start by mounting the control box to the top of our winch. Grabbing your control box, line up these hooks on the front bar and these tabs on the back bar. These tabs are held on with 2 Phillips head screws. You may need to loosen them in order to clear the bar. Grab your Phillips head screwdriver and tighten these down. With our control box mounted, we can now mount each lead to its corresponding color. I'm going to flip this around so you can get a better look. This yellow wire is going to go to the one with the yellow ring around the bottom here. Remove the nut and one of the washers. Route the lead with the yellow boot underneath the others and over top of the stud here. Replace the washer and the nut. And grab a 14mm socket and tighten this down. Moving to the black wire, remove the nut over the stud with the corresponding black ring around the bottom and one of the washers. Route the wire with the black boot over top of the stud, replace the washer, and replace the nut. Tighten this down. Repeat that process for the final power wire. Once all of these wires are attached, don't forget to put the boots over top. We're now going to turn the winch to the side so we can attach the 2 ground wires to the bottom lead. Starting with the smaller ground wire, we're going to attach this one, remove the nut here, as well as the lock washer. Now we're going to attach the longer black wire. One end is going to go to the bottom of our winch and the other one attaches to the battery. Replace the lock washer and the nut. Grab your 14mm socket and tighten this down. So that's going to be it for the wiring on our winch. Later on, these other two ends will connect to our battery, but for now, we're going to get this roller fairlead mounted on our bumper. This fairlead will mount to the front of your bumper, right on the outside here. So grab the included hardware and let's get these mounted up. Grabbing the shorter hardware with one washer on the bolt side, slide it through the mounting bracket on your roller lead and then through the hole on your bumper. Once it's lined up, grab the lock washer and the nut and put it over the back end of your bolt. Repeat that with the other side of the bracket. Using a 16mm wrench, hold the bolt head on the side of your roller lead and a 17mm socket. Tighten down the nut at the back of your bumper. Tighten down the other side. Now we can grab our winch and get it in place on our bumper, lining it up with the mounting holes. Slide the square nuts into the tabs on your Barricade winch. Repeat that with the remaining nuts, one on each corner of your winch. From underneath the bumper, line up the bolts with the mounting holes and tighten these down. Grab your 16mm socket, and you may need an extension here, and tighten this down. We can now pop the hood so we can hook up the positive and negative lead on our winch to our battery. Now we can run our wiring through the bottom of the grill and up into our engine bay. We're going to route it around the edge of the engine bay here and to our battery. We routed our ground wire around the edge of the engine bay here, and our power wire was a little bit shorter, so we went under the intake and popped out right here. You can route this however you're comfortable with in your Jeep. Just make sure that it is up out of the way of anything hot or moving, and it's zip tied so it doesn't move around in your engine bay. But now we can disconnect our negative terminal on our battery so we can hook up our leads. Grab a 10mm socket and disconnect the negative terminal. Going to the closest of the 10mm nuts, disconnect this from the positive terminal of the battery using a 10mm socket. Place the positive lead over this terminal on the battery and replace the nut. Grab your 10mm socket and tighten this down. We're now going to remove the nut on this side of our negative terminal so that we can now connect the lead from our winch. Replace the nut and tighten this down using your 10mm socket. Now we can replace the negative terminal on our battery. Tighten down this nut to attach our negative terminal. With our wiring complete, close up the hood, and now we can finish our winch before we test it. At this point, we can release the zip tie that's holding the end of our cable so that we can fish it through the bumper and fairlead and attach our hook. Remove the cotter pin, and then remove this pin out of our hook and install it over the eyelet of our cable. Reinstall your cotter pin, and just remember to bend the larger end up so it doesn't fall out. Now, if you'd like, you can install this included flag over the end of your hook. All right, let's test out our winch. The handle on your winch should be in the engaged position. If you'd like to pull some cable off the spool, simply flip this handle around and roll it out. To hook up your controller, remove the rubber boot. And you're going to want to line up this connector with this tab on the bottom here that goes in this slot right here. So with this controller, you're able to control the winch and winch it out or back in with this button. So the controller does have quite a bit of length on it to help you out in all those emergency situations, either on the trail or in the office. So once you've tested your winch, you can spool it back in under some load. And you can either store it directly against this fairlead, or if your bumper comes with these nice D-rings, you can hook it to those and then pull it tight. All right, so that is gonna do it for the review and install of our Barricade winch. Remember, for all things Jeep, keep it at ExtremeTerrain.com.